Hello everyone. In this video we're going to go ahead and add a jump potion to our game so that when our player goes ahead and runs over the potion, it'll allow him to jump for a short period of time higher than he could by default. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a prefab that allows us to place jump potions anywhere in our game as often as we want. And to start out, we're going to, in the hierarchy, right click, and we're going to do 2D object sprite. This is similar to what we did for player. A sprite object in game is a 2D object that includes a sprite image. That can either be a animated image or just a single frame. So let's go ahead and change this to be called potion, and this is going to be the jump potion. So we'll call it potion jump. We're going to go ahead and let's zero out its position. It's the transform position X, Y, and Z. And then down here in the sprites folder, we're going to go to our nature palette there, expand the individual sprites that we had chopped up earlier, and scroll towards the bottom. And you should see a purple potion. Go ahead and grab that, drag it, and up here, drop it on the sprite renderer. Now right now it's going to be huge, so let's go ahead and change the scale to 0.5 across the board there. And now we have our basis of our little potion right here. Okay. So what we're going to do next is we're going to make it so that our potion can go ahead and be collided with and have colliders so that when the player runs into it, it'll act as if the player has picked up the potion. So first things first, go ahead and in the hierarchy with the potion jump selected, over here in the inspector, do add component, and let's do rigid body 2D. And we're going to want to change the gravity scale to 0. We don't want the potion being affected by gravity, we don't want it falling down to the ground, anything like that. We're actually going to make it so that the potion is kind of animated, appears to be animated. It's bobbing up and down in space, waiting for the player to pick it up. Let's go ahead and let's add another component. We're going to add a circle collider 2D. Let's zoom in here on our potion. Now, let's modify this. And right now we're not seeing... Oh, that's because I'm on the Games tab here. Make sure you're on the Scene tab. My mistake. Let's go ahead and edit this, and we're going to bring it down so it's just around about there. That looks good. This allows us to go ahead and, again, as we do with the player, we're modifying the collider, in this case the circle collider, that is attached to the potion. Now we've also got the head of the potion. For that, we're going to go ahead and add a box collider 2D component. If we edit that, go ahead and drag it up so that it's at the top of the circle, pull down the top. Now if you click either the left or right point, click, hold Alt, and drag inward, it'll go ahead and drag both sides inward evenly. Again, that's click either the left or rightmost points, and then hold the Alt key on your keyboard, okay, and start moving, and it will go ahead and drag both sides evenly. Let's go ahead and back down here in the inspector, turn off editing the box collider. So now we have our potion, and we've got our colliders on it. Okay. Last thing we need to do here is we need to actually set up its functionality. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and add component, new script. And we're going to call it potion controller. Now, let's do a little bit of cleanup here. If you go down here to the project and press or open assets, you're going to see that it put the potion controller script in the topmost folder here. Click and drag it onto the scripts folder. It'll go ahead and it'll update its usage everywhere, as you saw here the inspector just flashed, because it updated the location of potion controller automatically. And And then also over here in the assets window, right click, create, and we're going to do folder. We're going to call it prefabs. And this is where we're going to drop our prefabs once we get there. But for now, we're going to finish up the potion. Okay, so again, in the hierarchy, select potion, jump, and scroll down, and then open up the potion controller script by double clicking. Okay. Now, right now, it should just say potion controller. You should have your start and your update methods. There's nothing to it right now. We need to go ahead and we need to add all the functionality into this so that the potion knows what it is, what it can do, how it's supposed to affect the player. Let's go ahead and first and foremost, we need our potion to know what it is. Now there's a reason I call this potion controller. I want it to be generic. I want it to be that I can go ahead and apply the script to any potion and then tell the potion, hey, this is the kind of potion you are, these are your properties, this is what you do. One of the data types that makes it easy to go ahead and create something like a type that we can assign to the object is an enum. So I could go ahead and say enum potion type and say you could have a speed one, you could have a jump one. Okay. And then I want to go down here and create the actual variable that holds the selected potion type for the instance of the potion. Okay. Now, go ahead and save this as it is right now. I want you to look, you have a public enum potion type. You also have a public potion type called potion type. Okay? So potion type is an enum, and then we've got a variable that is of type potion type. With this saved, go back to Unity and give the script a second to update, and then down here in the inspector, if you scroll down, you're going to see that it only gave us one variable called potion type. Both of them were public, but it only gave us one where we could choose speed or jump. Go ahead now and drop down and you'll see speed and jump. Select jump, because that's the potion we're going to be working on right now. Now the reason that you only see the one variable type is here we are essentially declaring a new kind of data type, okay? A value-based data type. As opposed to down here where we're actually creating a property, one that we want to be able to assign a value to. So think of it this way. This is giving us a new data type and we're telling it what values it can have. And down here we are saying, no, this is just a variable and this is the data type it is, much like a Boolean or an int string. That's why this one does not show up in the Unity editor even though it's public, but this one does. They both have to be public because we need this one to show up in the Unity editor, and this one cannot be public if this one is not public as well. It has to do with the fact that they're both using the data type, potion type. One is defining it, one is using it, and if they had different levels of protection, one being private, one being public, it can create errors in your code, and Visual Studio will actually give you an error telling you this is not right, you can't do this. So they're both public. Now, we know that we have a potion type, and this one is jump. Whether we have a jump potion or a speed potion, we need a variable that says this is how much this potion is going to go ahead and modify whatever property it is modifying. So we're going to create a public int potion mod amount. And then in our individual instances in our game where we put the potions in the level, we could go ahead and say, hey, this is a jump potion and it modifies jump by 100. This is a speed potion and it modifies speed by 5. Again, the idea here is we're trying to keep this generic. Now, let's go ahead and we're actually not going to make use of the update or the start method in this example here, so you can go ahead and get rid of those. What we are going to do is set up collision and what causes our potion to appear if it's floating. Let's go ahead and start with the floating first. Right? Now, go ahead and let's create 3 variables. private float floating timer. This one is basically keeping track of how long have we been floating. Okay. Private float floating max. This one is a hard-coded variable we are setting here in our code to say we only want to be floating for one long. How long is one exactly? We're going to go ahead and we're going to apply that to be 1 second. And you'll see down below how that works. And then private float floating direction. Now, this is that we want to be moving 0.01 increments through 3D space, or 2D space rather. Okay? Floating direction is up would be positive, down would be negative. Right now, we're going to be positioning all of our potions in the game so that they start at their lowest point and move up. And then when they reach the top, we'll flip floating direction to a negative value, and it will cause the potion to float down. Now, rather than just explain all this to you, let's go ahead now and set up that actual code so you can see the potion floating. So we're going to have a fixed update. Okay. Again, you saw this back with the player. And here's what we're going to see. If the floating timer is less than the maximum value that we want floating timer to be, so remember we start off with 0 and the max is 1, and we're going to move in increments of 0.01. We could go ahead and say that as long as floating timer is less than floating max, change the position of our current object. If we don't specify where the transform.position is from, it's assumed we're saying this .transform.position. So we're going to look at the potion's current transform.position, and we're going to assign it a new position in 2D space. And we're going to do that by saying transform.position.x. Remember, we're not changing the x, so that's fine. Okay. Then we're going to say transform.position.y plus our floating direction. So each time we go ahead and run through this loop in our fixed update, it's going to go ahead and say, hey, have we reached the top? Or have we gone ahead and have we been going for 1 second? No? Okay, great. Then go ahead and just increment the y position in whatever direction it should be, okay, and assign it to the object in the game. And next we're going to go ahead and we need to keep track of floating timer. We need to make sure that it's incrementing so we know when we need to move different directions. We're going to use similar to what we did again in player movement. We're going to use the time.fixedDeltaTime, which will say how much time in seconds has passed since the last time we called this method, okay? Fixed update, or last time fixed update ran rather. Okay? So this is where we go ahead and we get the seconds. We know that fixed delta time will know how long since the last time fixed update was called in seconds. If 0.002 seconds have passed, floating timer will increment by 0.002. When it reaches 1, it will go ahead and no longer be less than floating max. It'll have reached 1 second. So our potion will float up for 1 second, then down for 1 second. Up for 1 second and down for 1 second. And what's going to cause it to change direction is once we have gone 1 second in either direction, doesn't matter, we're going to change the floating direction by multiplying its current value by -1. If it's positive, it'll now become negative. If it's negative, it'll now become positive. That's how we get it to go up and down. And we're going to say, all right, restart the floating timer so that we can start counting from 0 back up to 1 second. So go ahead and let's start with what we have here. Save potion controller. And then I want you to go back into Unity. On the game scene, let's go ahead and scroll out so you can see your game. Now you'll see down here on the potion with it selected in the inspector, potion controller still has potion type and potion mod amount. We don't need to worry about that right now. What we do want to do is go ahead and up here in the top left, click the arrow key, the arrow button, so we can select movement. Now, go ahead and click the left handlebar, hold control on your keyboard, sorry, the right handlebar, hold control on your keyboard, and start moving the potion. You'll see that it snaps along the grid. Same thing here. If we click up here, hold control, and start moving it downward, it'll snap. Now, right there, the potion is now behind the terrain. Playing along with some values, I found that setting the Y to be negative 2.7, so 0.3 higher than our original position where we were underground, will put the potion at a nice spot just above the ground. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and let's run this. And it looks like my scale is very high. Let me scroll that out. There we go. Now you can see the potion is moving up and down all on its own. If I run into it right now, that's going to create issues because we have not yet set up collision, and there it goes, flying forever. Now wherever it stops, it starts bobbing up and down still. All right, there you go. We now have a potion that sits there bobbing up and down in space. All right. Now there's a couple things we need to do here. First, we're going to modify the player. Before we modify the potion any further, we're going to go ahead and we're going to modify the player. So go ahead and click on the player in the hierarchy. If you haven't already, make sure that the player is on the player layer. Okay? Whatever number it is doesn't matter. The number is just whatever you create, when you created it, and what order you created it. Mine happens to be 9. Okay? Now I want to make sure I note that the layer number is 9 for player. Now go ahead and go to your script and go back to player movement. Now, up here with public float run speed, we need a couple variables to be exposed for our potions to work. It's going to do public bool has jump potion equals false. Now we're checking to see, does the player currently have a jump potion? Go ahead and throughout this example, we're going to set up some of what you would do if you wanted to add a speed potion. Speed potion is false. Public int potion mod amount equals 0. Now again, I'm making the mod amount generic, but I need to store it on player so that I can pass from potion what the mod amount should be over here on player movement. Now beneath these, let's go ahead and create some private float. Potion time max equals 10. Again, this is ultimately going to be 10 seconds. And private float potion time current equals 0, because we of course start with the potion timer at 0. We haven't done anything, we haven't gotten a potion yet. Right. Now go ahead and let's scroll down to fixed update. Now before we move our character, we want to make sure that everything about the player controller is set up, the character controller 2D that we're referencing here with the controller variable. We're going to go ahead and again, we're only going to deal with the jump potion in this example. I'm going to give you just enough that if you want, you can go do the speed potion on your own. But you can see, if the player currently has the jump potion and the potion time current is less than potion time max, okay, meaning we have not used up the time that we want the potion to be active, we're going to go ahead and controller dot. Now you're going to get an error here. It's going to try to correct you. You're going to type in m_jump force mod equals potion mod amount. And then potion time cur plus equals time dot, you guessed it, fixed delta time. And then for our else statement, as long as we have a jump potion and once our potion timer current exceeds our potion time max, we want to go ahead and set potion time current back to 0. We want to go ahead and, again, the jump force mod, that variable that doesn't exist that you're going to get an error back, set that back to 0. We no longer are modifying it. And get rid of their jump potion, saying that nope, the player does not have a jump potion. Now, this variable we need to go ahead and take care of. But again, to quickly walk you back through this, if the player has a jump potion and the potion current timer, the one that's keeping track of current time passed, is less than the max time, on the character controller 2D, modify the jump force mod variable to be equal to whatever the potion's mod amount was that we assigned back here on the player from the potion controller. Potion mod amount. If the potion timer current exceeds potion time max, or somehow we no longer have a jump potion before that point, reset the current timer, reset the jump force mod on the character controller back to 0, and just to make sure, set has jump potion to false. Okay? Now, again, we've got this jump force mod variable. It doesn't exist over here. It's because on character controller 2D, it doesn't exist. We need to go ahead and add that. And we're going to add it right down here under M was crouching. We're going to call it public float M jump force there we go, mod equals 0f. Yeah. So initially the jump force mod does nothing. Now let's go ahead and we go to line 133. You see here's where we add the jump force when the player goes ahead and jumps. We want to go ahead and further modify that jump force with our jump force mod variable. Okay? Now normally this will be 0, but if the player has picked up a jump potion and their jump potion has a potion mod amount greater than 0, when we go ahead and go through this loop here and check, we're going to say, all right, the potion mod amount matches whatever the potion mod amount was on the actual potion object, passed it back to player movement, and then on the controller that the character is attached to, or that's attached to the character rather, we go ahead and give it that modification amount to actually apply to its jumps. Now, it's going to be really hard to see this right now because we haven't yet done the collision. So, for the potion, let's go ahead and wrap that up real fast. Down here at the bottom of your potion controller script, add private void on collision enter 2D. And what this is when two 2D objects colliders, when two 2D colliders actually collide with one another, when they enter each other's space, this method will be called. This one is going to be attached to potion controller. So when the potion controller's 2D colliders collide with anybody else's 2D colliders, it will go ahead and trigger this method. And whatever object you collide with will be passed in via this parameter here, the collision. So let's go ahead and if collision dot game object, so let's get the game object that we have collided with dot layer equals, now this is where I said it's important to see what layer the player is. In my game, the player is on layer 9. So in my code, I will say if the layer number equals 9, then I want to go ahead and say, all right, I've collided with the player. We got to do something about this. Now, we're going to check and see, is our own potion type equal to potion type dot jump? If so, I'm going to go ahead and, again, take the object we've collided with, get the game object that it's attached to, get component. We know that we've collided with player, so we know that it should have the component player movement script attached to it. And then we're going to set has jump potion equals true. For the speed potion, we would go ahead and perform a similar check to just say, hey, if the potion type that is this potion is potion type dot speed, then just copy this. There we created a has speed potion variable on the player. No? Then we want to go ahead and I'm going to copy this in here so you guys can see it. We're going to go ahead and say, all right, now for the object we collided with, which again we know is player, get the game object, get the player movement script, get the potion mod amount variable on player movement, and apply this potion's potion mod amount to that variable. And finally, destroy the potion. We picked it up, it no longer exists. And go ahead and save this. Now, if you followed along and everything is correct and you've set up everything in Unity correctly, you should be able to go ahead and run this. Now I'm going to go ahead and see here. I've got the player selected in the hierarchy while running my game. I'm going to scroll in the inspector all the way down, and I'm going to see there's a has jump potion, has speed potion, and potion mod amount variables right there. Actually, I just realized if we go ahead and click on our potion jump, we never gave it a potion mod amount. So we're going to go ahead and set that to, we're going to set it to 250, just so we really can see it when it runs. Now again, select the potion, scroll to the bottom, potion controller, set the potion mod amount to 250 and make sure the type is jump. Now go ahead and select player again in the hierarchy and run your game. And over here inspector, scroll down to the player movement script. So you can see it has jump potion and potion mod amount. Now when I go walk over that potion, I now have a jump potion and my potion mod amount is 250. And if I jump a lot higher. And about 10 seconds after I get it, the has jump potion goes away. And my potion mod amount, that can go ahead and remain. It technically doesn't matter because I don't have a jump potion, I'm not setting the jump potion variable over on the controller. I've set it back to 0. What really matters is here, do I have a jump potion? No. So then I no longer get the benefits of a bonus to my jump. Now, lastly, what we want to do is we want to make it so that we can place very easily jump potions anywhere in our game. So down here in the project, click Assets, go to the prefabs folder. Up here in the hierarchy, click and drag the potion jump down here to the prefabs folder and let it go. And you now have turned it into a prefab. You can place it anywhere in your game. If I were to go in from prefabs, drag this back into the game, right? There are now 2 potions in game. If you want to go ahead and place this potion similar to how we did the first one in terms of getting it on the grid, go ahead and select the potion that you want to place, the instance of it, set the transform dot position to 000. Okay. Click a handlebar and hold Control to get it to snap along. And then click the handlebar, hold Control, and get it to snap along. And remember, we want to move it up in the Y-axis by 0.3. So -2 becomes -1.7, and now I'm right above. If I wanted to go ahead and move it back half a grid so that it was in the middle of the box, I would move the X position back by, again, I want to move back half a grid. I'm going to move back a full half a point. So instead of 5, I'd move back 4.5. And if I run my game, I will now have 2 potions. I can skip that one, go pick up that one, and I have the jump. And if I wait for this to wear off, okay, it's worn off, I can go pick up that one, and I get to jump back. And I'll have it for 10 seconds until that potion also runs out. Okay. Now we've gone ahead and I've set the groundwork for you to be able to create a speed potion as well if you wanted to. Yes, there would be some additional if statements in there. You'd have to decide how and if you wanted to make it so that you could only have 1 potion active at a time. Otherwise, you need to modify how you store the potions that the player currently has and the different modification values they may have. But overall, you have the groundwork now to be able to go ahead and create pickups or power-ups inside your game.